Hello, hello. It's the one and only Guy Johnny, also known as Coach Johnny. I'm here with you with 5D Transformations. And this talk is going to be a fun one. And this one is a big one. And it's about introverted thinking. And I'm going to talk to you about how to use introverted thinking. And so a key thing to understand about introverted thinking is there's two forms of thinking. There's a yin and a yang. There's a masculine and a feminine energy when it comes to thinking. And the way I look at it as the yin form of thinking is introverted thinking and the yang form of thinking is extroverted thinking. Now, I've already done a video on how to use extroverted thinking. So, feel free to tap into that. But essentially, the key thing that you want to keep in mind when it comes to introverted thinking is that I want you to take a perspective of all that really matters is what I think. Think about that, because for people who already use introverted thinking, you might not realize that that's what's going on. For people who use extroverted thinking, you might not realize that that's how it operates within you. Feelers, definitely. See, feeling is all about compromise. Feeling is all about the bigger perspective. Feeling is something we all have because we all share a world and we all have energy that interacts with each other's energy. It's vibration. So whether I don't care about your vibration or not, if you're in my proximity, our vibrations have to deal with each other. And with introverted thinking, though, it's separate from the vibration. And so it's not about how, vibration has to do with how we feel. But introverted thinking is just what I think as an independent entity. And if you want to tap into how you think, there's a whole world with that. It's like, what do I think? Well, introverted thinking, first of all, I'm going to give you a few things if you want to use introverted thinking, how to use it. Number one, introverted thinking operates best amongst itself. You see, introverted thinking thinks best when it's alone. Introverted thinking knows what it needs to do. It's not worried about what everybody needs to do. It just knows what it needs to do. It's very self-focused. If you want to use introverted thinking, you have to begin to do this. You have to think about what it is that you think separate from the collective, separate from the group, separate from what you should think or whatever. That's when you start tapping into introverted thinking and you start using it, is when you go, okay, aside from what's morally right, aside from what I'm told, aside from how they may feel about it or how I may feel, what do I think? Feelings aside. Don't be afraid to hurt feelings, or all of that is feeling stuff. That has nothing to do with introverted thinking. Introverted thinking in and of itself is, this is my thought. And this is just what I think. I don't care what nobody has to say. To go on another note, if you want to use introverted thinking, you simply observe something for a long period of time and focus on the logical steps. So a good way to use introverted thinking is to build something. A great way to do it is to buy like a Lego set, or buy something that you have to build, a furniture piece, anything, and just focus on linearly putting one step at a time. And while you're focusing on doing one step at a time, you can do this with anything. You can do this with all kinds of things. Cooking. You can do this with any skill that you learning how to dance, doing salsa, whatever. Practice doing something and focusing on one step at a time. See, what people miss about introverted thinking is that the way your introverted thinking becomes better is through hyperfocus. And I noticed that people who have introverted thinking dominant, they have the ability to hyperfocus, because what they can do is hone in, because everything else, since they don't care what everybody else thinks, it just disappears, and they hone in on whatever it is they're observing, and they're focused on taking the next logical step. That's the best next logical step. Introverted thinking is about constantly taking the best next step. Think about debates, think about communication. The reason why extroverted feelers are so good at influencing the environment in the moment is because their peer function is introverted thinking. That pairs with extroverted feeling. So they're focused on the group and the next best thing to say and the next best action to take. And if someone does this, they have the perfect next thing to say to get them to move in their direction, because they're self-focused on the next best thing to do. They're not worried about the bigger picture and, okay, what is the bigger thoughts and what about this compared with this thought, and rationalizing thoughts to come up with the best thought for the group. Their thought is, this is the best thought for me at the moment. And I'm just going to hyper focus on that, because if I do that effectively enough, then I know that at least my part is taken care of. And that's going to help the group by me making sure that my part is shored up versus all of us being confused and trying to figure this thing out. At least I know what I'm doing, and then I can focus on what they're doing next. But first, it's about what I'm doing. Introverted thinking is logical. It wants to focus on what's happening moment to moment and figure out the best action to take in the moment. It doesn't want to deal with things that are outside of the momentary timeline as much. You know, it will deal with those things, and it can tap into those things and do a great job of figuring those things out as well. It's very adaptable because of, you know, the nature, you know, of introverted thinking is it can, you know, take on different things very intelligently. It can understand the right thing to do in the moment in a variety of different areas, because it's constantly absorbing all of these different systems that it's logically followed and saying, okay, this fits here because that's what I learned from this moment. See, what happens is, as you logically follow a pattern from beginning to end, you notice things along the way. You notice things that other people would miss. And those things that you notice gives you this level of brilliance, because you notice patterns begin to emerge and you begin to know the best step to take in each moment to successfully get things done. And introverted thinking begins to run off of this drive to constantly do the next thing right based on how they see it. It doesn't care. It doesn't get clouded by all the extra thoughts and distractions, because it's like, no, I need to stick to this logical thinking pattern to get to this logical end result. It wants to get linear from this place to that place through a logical linear form of thought. So if you want to use extroverted thinking, you have to focus on the moment and the next best action to take. Don't worry about all the other things. All of that gets in the way of introverted thinking. If you want to get in the way of introverted thinking, think about other thoughts while trying to do one thought. If you want to use introverted thinking, here's a way to use introverted thinking. Just focus on one thing at a time. Block out everything else. If you're playing a video game, play the whole game. If you're talking to somebody, focus on talking to them. You know, if you're making whatever you're doing, focus on that in that moment until it's done, and then you focus on the next thing. Because what you'll understand as an introverted thinker is, if I try to think about other things, now I just got in the way of getting one thing done. Then I'm thinking about this, and then I'm not finishing that. And now you're trying to do so many things and nothing got done. So introverted thinking is trying to knock out one thing at a time in a very linear fashion. And that's how it's thinking. It's like, what do I need to do to get to here, to get to here? That's it. It's not trying to think about the values and the reasons. It's just like, no, I'm doing this to get here. And I need to get here. I need to get to that next step. It's like a board game. It wants to get to the next spot linearly, right? So that's that. If you want to use introverted thinking on another level, you got to understand that introverted thinking is really putting your logic first. And you got to realize, and this is really deep what I'm going to say, and this is something I learned as somebody that learned more and more about the introverted thinking function, as a person that doesn't use introverted thinking dominant. Introverted thinking is like this, man. And this is what I got from it. If I keep on valuing what other people think over what I think, and that's what a lot of feelers can do, that to make things more accommodating for people, they'll compromise what they think in some cases. And sometimes thinkers will do that too, introverted thinkers or extroverted thinkers, right? But if you want to truly tap into introverted thinking, you have to realize this. If I compromise what I think all the time for what they think, but they're not compromising what they think for what I think, then what kind of relationship is this? And you have to come to the understanding of, like, you know what? If I thought of something, and this is especially if you've done research and you're a person who learns, and you're somebody that, like who you are, that's listening to this video right now this long, you know, if you got to this point in the video to hear me say this, obviously you're intelligent enough about whatever it is you're learning about this subject. So if anybody else is going to come and talk to you about this subject, but they haven't put in the same amount of work that you put in to learn the subject, then you don't really, who cares what they really think? And it's like, I got to tell you what I think. And I'm not going to let you just get off the hook to be agreeable. I'm going to stick to what I think, and I'm going to stand on what I think. And that is huge when we talk about introverted thinking, because that is the energy you have to tap into. If you want to use introverted thinking, you have to really be like, what is it that I really know? And you got to stand on it. And you got to really understand that everyone isn't thinking at the level that you're thinking, because they didn't put in the same logical steps that you put in. So they don't have the right to sit at the same table that you sit at when it comes to certain subjects. So this is all what introverted thinking is about. It's about the logical next best thing to do. It's about paying attention to your environment, hyper focusing. It's about being one step at a time. It's about following a linear pattern till you get to the end, and not wanting to take shortcuts, but sticking to it long term until you get there. I'm gonna do a part 2 for this because I don't want to talk too long. But this is my video on introverted thinking, how to use it. I'm gonna do a part 2 on this soon. And let me know what you think about introverted thinking. Let me know if you got any value from this. I appreciate you all listening. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. It's the one and only. It's 5D Transformations. Thank you for listening. We'll talk soon. Peace.